Liefländer. I run global growth marketing at Just Eat Takeaway.
And my name is Elbert Fliek. I'm the CTO of Objective Platform. We built a MMM SaaS platform, and I've been with OP for 7 years, and my responsibility is the development of the platform itself.
So the topic of today will be
how to make MMM more effective through AI.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about the journey of Just Eat Takeaway and their MMM work together with Objective Platform. So just to give you an idea of what Just Eat Takeaway is, we're a global food delivery platform working across 17 markets, 60 million active customers that we service, and a couple of hundred millions of marketing investment and other investments that we're making every year. So the question is, what is really driving growth for the business? And for that, you have multiple stakeholders that are asking questions, and you have many data points that you can use in order to build a strong marketing playbook or growth playbook for the business. But still, there is this doubt and question, well, what now really makes a difference? So when you look at the different possibilities of what to look at, there's, of course, one important element for the digital marketing world, which is attribution, which we have relied on for decades. So it is kind of the standard, and everybody knows what you're talking about when you talk about your attributed results that your campaigns drive. Next to that, there's lift studies. So there's incrementality testing that you can run, or there's in-platform possibilities to understand how much incremental growth of whatever KPI your campaigns are delivering. That is something that we have invested a lot of time in the last years. We're running a couple of hundred tests every year to understand the incremental impact that our channels have on the business. But still, there's the question of, well, how does it link to the rest of the business KPIs and how it all bring together? So for that, you generally have an analytics approach that helps you to put those figures together. But still, it seems like these things are loose ends and they don't really translate easily. So the question is, well, what really brings us then to a unified approach in order to have a more complete and holistic perspective on what is driving growth? That holistic approach or unified approach is not trying to assume, at least not in my perspective, that you have an absolute truth. So I never trust anyone who's saying, well, that is definitely the impact of campaign A or measure B that you're inserting in the business to deliver a certain or explain a certain business development. But there's always a multitude of things that are happening. And what you need different angles to look at the same problem and try to triangulate how these different perspectives tell you what directionally probably the truth is. So none of these individual methods are really explaining it as a whole, and you need to combine them into one holistic framework. So how did we start this? We didn't start big, so we did not make a selection for an MMM provider for all markets altogether. We did not start all markets altogether. We ran a pilot. We started with one market, and we started small. So we chose for Objective Platform because we could start off really quickly. And our intention was to deliver an, let's call it MVP solution, where we can understand how complicated the process is, what the questions are that come up during the process, in order to then decide how much or how do we actually want to go about the rest of this initiative. So it's really about validation of our legacy approach to how we have looked at impact measurement, and to combine it with what we then find out during the work with Objective Platform to see if this is the solution for us. Does this work for us as a business? Also good to understand is that there's probably also in all your businesses people that are pro analytics and pro econometrics. And there's people that are a bit more, let's call it, questioning the method and the results and the outcome, because there's not an even understanding of how these models work. And they are generally also a kind of black box that you have to work with. So for us, it was really about creating an MVP, a proof point that we can then use to roll it out across all our markets. Important when you start this up is that you get a good alignment on what you really need to find out. The challenge is that most stakeholders that you need to involve, because everybody needs to provide good information, good data to feed into the model, have a different perspective on what they want to find out. Maybe even a different perspective of what the output is that you need to deliver. So what is key is that you get a good definition of the business questions that you set out and align them across the stakeholder group so that you all agree with them that those are the things that matter, that you want to take from the model. Second thing is that you define what KPIs need to feed into the model and what the expectation is around these KPIs. The data work, the assembly, is something that takes a bit of time and effort, and you need the buy-in from all the parts of the business that need to contribute, and it needs to be clear what the expectation is in order to make that work. And then very, very important is the last block here. When you do these kinds of MVP runs, where you start off with something that you test, the outcome will not be perfect. It will be a first start, and there's lots of things, lots of questions that arise from the results that you cannot immediately answer, and where you require a diligent approach in terms of testing the assumptions that you make from the outcomes of these models or this model in order to then iterate from there. So it's a start, it's building an hypothesis, and then you take it from there. One thing that we very quickly learned, and this is one example of many taking out from our big initiative here, is our contributions in terms of our Meta investments. So historically, Meta has been under pressure, let's call it, from my team specifically, given that we did not or were not really able to show proof points that Meta is contributing to performance marketing results. So what we have been doing in the last years, definitely in the continental Europe area, was that we've been decreasing our performance budgets on Meta time over time. And also, given our need to validate the incrementality approach of Meta for a while, we have also not been able to find proof points there. So we were at a very much low point when it comes to performance marketing sided investment in Meta. And after we saw the results from the work with the Objective Platform on the MMM model, plus also the validation, our validation of the incrementality approach and the results that we saw from it, we have since been able to increase our Meta investment 7-fold based on that insight across our markets. So it's quite a sizable change that we have made and a proof point that we could create around a very, very big platform with very, very big audiences that are relevant for us, that we could trust with these two insights, incrementality on the one hand and MMM on the other hand. So not only one source. And as I said, these insights, it's not a one-off. It's not like you do it once and then you have the result and then you're done. So it needs a continuous approach. You need to grind your results in terms of fact-checking the output that you see with changes that you bring to your investment approach. So reducing certain channels, increasing certain channels, might be in certain regions only, in order to find out if the results still hold and if you see meaningful changes in the following MMM output. So with that, you continuously validate the output of your model. We also do that with our incrementality testing. That's something we feed into the model in order to validate the outputs. Our aspiration is that we want to bring the outputs of our incrementality testing and attribution modeling and also the MMM results as close together as possible in order to find that unifying data point and unifying method. So yeah, as said, we started with one market. Actually, it was Canada, and we've scaled to by now 5 markets overall, and there are more to come. So it's a step-by-step approach that we've chosen, but it helps to get the buy-in into the organization, also the trust from the people that are working with the model, in order to transport that messaging with trust into the rest of the organization. So key learnings that I can share with you and that are, I think are an important output for everybody who's listening here. So start with aligned objectives. That is really a key point. What do you want to get out from the model? Many stakeholders will have many requests. Not all of them can be answered at the same time from one single model. You need to start small and then scale fast. So once you've learned how it works, then really pick up the pace, but figure it out with the first start. Important is that everybody is able, who needs to work with the results can also interpret the results well. So there is some level of education required for every stakeholder. And while there is a unifying system with an MMM that goes across many channels and initiatives, there also needs to be a unified interpretation, because the model usually leans to giving you outputs or ways of interpretation that can differ from one to the other. So it's good to have some sort of guidance on how models need to be, how model outputs should be interpreted in order to look into the same direction as a business. Of course, balancing granularity and actionability is an important point. You can go very, very deep, very, very detailed, but then what you can actually do with the results will be limited. So that is an important thing to find out also very much in the beginning. And then the last one is that in order to make good use of the output, needs to be very much part of the regular planning cycle. So whenever there's a moment of big decision making when it comes to budgets, the MMM results should be at hand and should be updated to an extent that you can bring them in as a source of information. Over to Elbert.
Yeah, thanks, Christopher. Good morning, everyone. So it's super cool that we as Objective Platform can help Just Eat Takeaway scale MMM across the world. But of course, we're living in the era of AI. So the question is, okay, how can we use AI to make scaling MMM easier, not just for Just Eat, but any company we work with? So first off, let's do some classic audience engagement. Everybody raise your hand if you're using AI. Let's see if Jorna was right. Is AI everywhere? Yes, yes. Basically, everyone has their hand up, and people who don't are probably lying. So how many of you think that AI is being held back because it can't access the systems and the data that's available in your enterprise? Most of the hands are going up as well. So we recognize this problem, something we saw with some of our Just Eat team members, but also among our other customers. We see that a common use case is they use Objective Platform, they get interesting insights, and they copy-paste data into their AI system of choice. And of course, this kind of works. But imagine if these systems could talk to each other natively, then the possibilities would be endless. So that's why we're really looking to scale this combination of AI and Objective Platform, supercharging Objective Platform with AI, but also supercharging your AI systems internally by enabling it to use Objective Platform. We have 3 main goals. First, we want to reduce the time to insights. So like Christopher was saying, we very much advocate for a test and learn framework where you're always testing new things, ingesting the results, evaluating them. And to do this effectively, you need to make the pattern with which you create these insights very scalable. And AI is a very interesting tool you can use for that. The second thing is democratizing access to insights. We recognize that marketing measurement is hard to do. The process is difficult, the data is difficult, the output is difficult. Actually, having people analyze those results and steer their business on it is difficult to do. AI can be a key enabler to make it easier to give many more people in your organization access to AI, and make them able to get the most out of marketing effectiveness measurement. And lastly, of course, reliability is essential. We've all seen, especially the earlier AI models, hallucinate very interesting answers that were completely wrong. And we recognize that marketing measurement is super important. The budgets that the brands we work with deal with on a daily basis are very sizable. So it's very important they are able to trust the results the AI gives them. So we're very much looking into how we can agentify, as in have AI agents be an important part of the life cycle of an MMM model. which typically starts with data validation. I think this is the thing most of our customers dislike the most, ensuring that you have high quality data going into your systems. The data typically starts fragmented in lots of different platforms. The quality can be good or can be less than stellar. Well, traditionally, people had to do lots of manual validation or come up with crude rules to check, okay, is my data of high quality? But AI is the next enabler here to automatically look at this data and judge, okay, is the quality of the data high? Or are there any issues that need to be looked at by a human? So doing this combination where AI does most of the heavy lifting, but then refers to a human in the loop to evaluate any final results. The next part our customers dislike the most is getting the data ready for the insights. So setting up data transformations, labeling to ensure that you have data that's ready for the model. Traditionally, we've always used these fancy rule-based systems, which work and are scalable, but are still a lot of work to set up and maintain. So if we've been working hard on creating AI agents to automatically do this data labeling, data transformation, and therefore make this process a lot quicker and easier. And lastly, also having the agent do the modeling itself. So a model creating a model. In this case, a large language model that can control the system to create an MMM model. This has been something that has typically been only be possible for experts who have a background in econometrics or AI. But the very cool thing about these AI models is that they have a lot of this background knowledge around econometrics and how to do MMM properly, but they also have an understanding of the marketing landscape. So by combining these two together with a human who is in the end the final person in control, the AI can actually create MMM models, see how those fit your business, evaluate them, and then improve them from there on out, really reducing the amount of effort that's needed to do marketing effectiveness. But it's not just about doing the technical work to prepare your models, but of course it's also the insight. Like I talked about earlier, the output of marketing effectiveness has traditionally been very hard for users to work with. It's lots of tables, lots of graphs, but to actually go from data to then insights and that you can actually steer your business on has been very difficult for users. This is also a key use case for AI. So we've enabled conversational insights that's available to our customers today, where instead of the marketeer needing to go into Objective Platform, look at graphs, get conclusions out of the data themselves, they can now ask any question that they need an answer for, and the AI has access to all of the tools within Objective Platform to answer these questions for them. So today, you can ask any question that will analyze all your historical results. And next up, we're also enabling the AI agent in Objective Platform to work with our media scenario planner, which will effectively also allow it to answer questions about the future. So where should we allocate the additional budget we have? How can we optimize our media plan for the next year? These type of questions. And now I'm going to get a bit technical. My background is in AI and economics. I hope you'll forgive me for that. I want to talk to you about a concept called Model Context Protocol. It's a protocol that was developed by Anthropic last year, which is basically a decade ago in the age of AI. And it's essentially an API for agent. So you see some platforms here on the right, some like Objective Platform, but also Google Analytics, HubSpot, GitHub, Zapier, etc. And what these platforms can do is build out a MCP server, and essentially it'll act as an API for agents. So it's a standard that allows any AI agent, whether it's Claude from Anthropic or ChatGPT or Gemini, to interact with these software platforms in a standardized way, which will enable very interesting use cases where you have your internal AI system that is fully in control, that can access all of the different data sources and platforms that you have access to, making it much more powerful than just a standalone chatbot. So, what can you do with this? So imagine you're using ChatGPT in your enterprise, but it can also be Claude or Anthropic or Gemini or any of them. And now you want to ask it a question like, how did my last campaign perform on YouTube? Without any platforms connected to it, it would of course have no idea. It can't access your KPI data. It doesn't know anything about this campaign. What was the target? And of course, it doesn't access Objective Platform natively. So how can it do this evaluation? So that's where MCP comes in. Well, one of the first connectors, as they're typically called in these systems that's available today, like in ChatGPT, for example, is to connect it to your email. So under the surface, this is also an MCP server. So it could look in your email and find a campaign brief. What was the goal for this YouTube campaign? In this case, we wanted the CPO under 45 euros in the Dutch, German, and UK market. It ran in October, and a specific audience and a specific format. So now we know what the goal of the campaign was. We can look at how it did. It can grab the Objective Platform MCP server and now pull in the incremental results. So identifying that actually this campaign brought in an incremental 4.5 thousand orders for a 86,000 euro spend. So an incremental CPO of 18 euros. And it can compare it to your historical average. So the historical average was a CPO of 26 euros and a ROAS of 2.5. So the CPO was 32% lower and the ROAS was higher than the previous YouTube campaigns. So now we have that information, but we want to go a level deeper and understand why was it more effective, not just, okay, it was effective. It can use the Google Ads MCP server. Google announced this, I think about a month ago. Essentially, you can connect your internal AI system also to Google Ads, and it will pull in all of your relevant Google Ads data. So it can then look at Google Ads and identify, okay, this campaign was stronger because we shifted to this custom intent and high intent in market segment, which had a better CPO, and the strongest performance was in the Dutch market and the German market. Well, this is one example of what becomes possible with MCP today by combining all of the systems that you have access to and giving the AI access to that as well. And that's why, as Objective Platform, we're very focused on not just using AI within Objective Platform, but also giving our customers access to Objective Platform with their AI agent as well. And we're looking to build this out together with customers over the coming period. That was what I wanted to talk about today. Any questions from you?
I have a question for Christoph. So everything you talked about is super clear, thank you. And the challenges around MMM are also clear and well studied. I think what was really interesting is the triangulation approach you mentioned in the beginning. So how do insights from MMM work together with other things? If you have any advices for that, or if there's any secret sauce that you've unlocked in how we can make this happen, what would that be?
It's actually very difficult. Because I trust you have the same feeling. So I would not try and tell you that we have it all figured out fully. But the idea is that you do run as many tests as possible. So be it an incrementality test on the digital side, or be it also an incrementality test, or a blackout test, or a geo test that you run in your markets. And then from the insight that you get there, you need to compare with the outputs that you have in the MMM. And then you need to adjust your model assumptions. Basically, every model works with certain assumptions, and direct the model more in a way that it matches with the insights that you have from your incrementality or other experimentation outputs. They will not always be, or there can be situations where those fluctuate, right? And that is one of the moments where it becomes rather difficult, because it could be that one result in a certain environment, let's say competitor environment, business environment, etc., is looking good, and then the next iteration looks bad, and then you also need to adjust your model factually. But that's then a business decision on how to treat it. So there will always be, I think that's a part that I find quite interesting in this whole tech data environment that we're in here, and also the interesting stuff that Objective Platform is developing now. There will always be a human mind that needs to make a decision on something, right? It's not going to be all machines. And even in that model training, model adjustment part, it needs somebody with experience and a perspective on the business and understanding of the business to make a decision. Am I going to take this insight along or not?
Thank you for sharing your insights. I was wondering, you mainly talked about meta advertising and those kind of things. Are there other channels you're looking into to make it an integrated whole, like let's say email marketing or out of home or?
No, all marketing channels are in there. It's just, I was just trying to show one output to that where we made a significant change after we saw the results. So the MMM is, of course, integrating all possible marketing channels where we have relevant data for, and that is reflected here.
We have time for one more question. Yes.
I would like to ask you if you have any comparison between the previous, let's say, traditional way in order to run MMM and after the technology stack that you introduced, any key features that you can share as improvements? Time to market, time to insights, or less cost, or less manpower? Because, you know, this is always the ask. Thank you.
So I'll give my perspective, which is of course a bit biased, but like we really advocate for this test and learn framework. Like Christoph was saying, it is so important that you can try something, evaluate, learn, and improve. And I think the issue with many, let's say, traditional MMM suppliers, whether you do them internally or with an external consultant, is that you don't get the frequency. Like maybe you will run your models once every year or every 6 months. If you're lucky, once every 3 months, but typically the cadence isn't there to do effective learning. So I think if you want to do it internally, you can do it, or if you want to do it with a traditional MMM partner, you can, but make sure you can hit the frequency that you need to effectively do the test and learn. But that's my perspective. Christoph?
So the main thing coming from the technology advancements that we see now with AI will be, of course, pace, right? But it still needs as I said, a person in between that fact checks, makes sense of these things. So that it will still be analytical work that is required, that needs a human mind to look at things and make sense of it. So that part won't go away. Also, the stakeholder part won't go away, which is something that takes a lot of time and energy. But let's call it the boring stuff, preparation of the data, feeding into the data, retrieval of the data, and putting the data together for let's call it an insight, is something that you can do quicker. But all of the difficult people problems around it, they will remain.